It's ZFM Stereo, my station, your station, Artist Radio in Town. My name is Larry Quidedai with this edition of The Platform, a special edition that's brought to you by the Media Monitors in collaboration with the Media Alliance of Zimbabwe. And the Media Alliance of Zimbabwe includes organizations such as the Zimbabwe Union of Journalists, the Voluntary Media Council of Zimbabwe, Gender Media Connect, Zimbabwe National Editors Forum, among others. Of course, this program is live. If you want to get in touch with us, it's 0772 168 045 for calls and 0731 168 045 for WhatsApp. And today's program comes just a few weeks before an election, a general election that has been declared for 30 July 2018 as declared by the President. Zimbabwe will go to vote for the President of the country, the House of Assembly, as well as council seats. This live broadcast will serve as a platform for key stakeholders within the elections to discuss the following issues: the media conduct and professionalism around the elections, how media organizations plan to cover the elections, and available complaints mechanisms to political players and members of the public. I've got a panelist, a five-strong panelist system that is going to help us unpack issues, these very important issues around election coverage. First question I'm going to ask is, can you tell us about this committee? Because a lot of people don't even know about this committee.
Thank you very much. The Media Monitoring Committee is a committee within the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission, which kicks off immediately after proclamation. Its role is to monitor the operations of the media, both print and electronic, to ensure that there is fair, balanced and equitable and equal at times coverage of the major players in any electoral situation, particularly now the parties and anybody, even the independents, that they are covered properly for a fair report and coverage, so that they inform the public properly, fairly, so that the public can actually decide on whom they want to choose for whatever post is being competed for.
So does it monitor all media, or does it tend to monitor only public media?
We monitor all media, both public and private, yes. And sometimes people want to call it independent, but I think we are safer with private media.
Okay, so then
not social media. Not at least at the moment.
Okay, not at the moment. Yeah. But then the question I want to ask is, you're talking about coverage. In terms of it being fair, do you also look at the editorial content as opposed to just time that is served?
We have to look at that because the views of the editor certainly are very, very important, particularly if they are commenting on electoral issues that have been happening. What is the situation like? Normally they do that and catch the major story and then give a comment. Certainly we are interested in that, because whenever something happens that is not fair or we think needs following up, we have to actually go and meet or write to the editor of the different publication.
And what happens if there's a breach?
When there's a breach, of course, we are guided by statutory instrument 33 of 2008. When there's a breach, certainly there is need for investigation, and it depends on the type of breach it is. If it's something not peaceful, if it's violent and so on, it means that we actually have to kick in law enforcement agents. We have Assistant Commissioner Makoda, who has been second, whose task is to actually deal with electoral issues. So we contact them and also work with the Zimbabwe Human Rights Commission if there is need for investigation. And if there is that breach also, it behoves us to actually go and see the editor of the respective paper that has published the story, so that we can clarify if there is need for an apology or somebody has been misrepresented or they claim they've been misrepresented, and the editor actually knows that, then they have to do a retraction. And the retraction, of course, if the story was on the first page, it has to be also on the first page for fairness, so that people read it and know that an apology has been given.
So, say broadcast, which happens in real time.
Yes.
Okay. How do you monitor something of that nature? Do you have people sitting, listening all the time?
Yes, we operate when we come on board after the proclamation. The commission itself does not have the capacity. And therefore, a provision in the Electoral Act actually allows us, it enjoins us to work with the Broadcasting Authority of Zimbabwe and also the Zimbabwe Media Commission. They are the experts in the field. And so they continue, actually, they stop operating independently and are actually subsumed under the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission. They are the experts and they do the monitoring on a daily basis. At the moment, we are playing around, not playing around, we are trying, we're beginning to set up a small monitoring room in the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission so that we build capacity in that area. But certainly it would not be in a position to monitor the media, even if it is well developed, because that is a very major task. Because the number of publications are many, and with time we expect that there will be quite a number of electronic media outlets as well.
So if you just tuned in, you listen to ZFM Stereo, my station, your station, the hottest radio in town. This broadcast is brought to you by the Media Monitors in collaboration with the Media Alliance of Zimbabwe. It's a special broadcast which is being done before a live audience. So you'll be hearing questions coming in from the floor in just a bit. Now I'm going to move forward now to the VMCZ, Mr. Lofty-Dube. Have there been any complaints so far?
We have had complaints generally, but the specific election complaints, we have not had a number of them, expectedly so, because normally you would get a lot of activity after the proclamation of elections. We're anticipating that in the coming 30 days, there will be a lot of complaints pertaining to elections, and understandably so, as a result of the intensity in terms of the politicking that will be happening at that time. So we are expecting a deluge of complaints as the elections nears.
So for someone who's sitting at home in Zarabani or Lulibadzimo, they're asking themselves, VMCZ, what is your complaint support mechanism ahead of these particular elections? How does it work?
We do have a committee which is chaired by a retired judge. The committee receives complaints from members of the public, and in most circumstances when we do look at the complaints, we look at also at our code of conduct. We have a code of conduct that guides the media reportage during elections. We have a certain section in the code that deals with the elections. I'm happy that ZEC is also doing a similar exercise in terms of assisting members of the public who are aggrieved by stories. But we have a committee which is in place at VMCZ that looks at complaints. And normally when a complaint comes our way, we notify the editor to say there is this complaint that we have received. The editor responds, and from the response of the editor, we look at the code of conduct for the media and say, look, what has been breached? It's an area we would have loved to coordinate with the ZEC, because we're all doing a professional job in terms of professionalizing the media during the election period. I think it's an open area for consensus. We do that every day on general complaints that we receive throughout a period which is not an election period. So we do that. I also noticed that it's something that Media Monitors does on a daily basis, and I'm sure the ZEC could tap from the expertise that they have. They monitor all type of media, and I'm sure they do have the capacity just as much as we do have the capacity. But the advantage we have is the code of conduct that the media, the editors we have here subscribed to. And when we look at the complaint, it's against a code of conduct that they are agreeable to. And we look at people complain at times, and rightly so or wrongly so, because of a lack of an understanding in terms of how the media operates. Sometimes our role is not even to say to the media, you should apologize or retract or do what. Sometimes it's an issue of media literacy, where we take the complainant through a process to explain to them how the media operates.
The interesting question that follows up from that is, who can complain? Like, can a member of the public complain, or it has to be somebody who's aggrieved?
We have complaints from individuals and what we call second-party complaints. Like, for example, if someone, a supporter, feels that their party was not covered properly, they can lodge a complaint with the Voluntary Media Council. I'll give a common example where you have second-party complaints, like children's rights groups complaining on behalf of a a story maybe that exposes a child in an improper manner. A child's right can complain on behalf of that. Political parties can complain. Supporters of that political party can complain. And the basis of their complaint is based on whether what has been published or broadcast is in breach of the code of conduct.
Now, going now to the practitioners, I've got Mr. DUMISANI MULEYA, who's the editor of the Zimbabwe Independent. How are media houses handling election reporting at the moment?
Well, probably I will start by saying we approach the election knowing fully well that it's an event that is critical for the future of a country, in this case Zimbabwe. We also approach it knowing that how an election goes determines whether the country moves forward on a democratic path and towards peace, or if an election doesn't go well, a country can be derailed from the path of democracy, and it can go also plunge into conflict, which brings us into the question about the issue. What is critical for us is to make sure that we gather, we distribute information that speaks mainly to the parties, what they are offering, the candidates, what they stand for. Look at the Electoral Commission itself, whether it's doing its job properly, because an election must not just be free and fair, it must be seen by the citizens, by the voters to be as such. That is why we tend to focus not just on the players themselves, but on the referee. We are refereeing the referee and the players. We give ourselves that role, that we're a watchdog above them all. We want to see whether they're doing their jobs properly. And that's what we're doing now. We are opening our platforms, our pages, the airspace, like yourselves in this case, to hear different parties, to hear different manifestos, to hear different voices, and also to make sure that the citizens out there, the voters, get information that is accurate, that is impartial, that is also balanced, in order to help them make informed choices, because it's only when you have information that is accurate and usable that you can be able to choose among the candidates and the parties who serves your interests, who serves your constituents' interests, who serves your nation's interests better.
I could ask you one question before we take a quick break. The consideration of issues such as ethics and professionalism, and often the media in this country is seen as polarized. How are you dealing with this issue at the moment going into the elections?
Yeah, well, there's a history of polarization in this country. It is a long history. It is to be traced in the structures of the media here and the political environment. The structures being that there is a vast space of media that is controlled by the state, by the government. And you have tended to see that space being given to the ruling party. And what that has led to is led to the development of an alternative space in the form of the private media, sometimes called the independent media, even if she earlier on seems to be uncomfortable with the term independent. We still believe we're independent, and we insist we are, because we know we are. That has led to a dichotomy of a public space, the private space. And that dichotomy has led to the positioning of political interest groups and parties on those platforms, debating, opposing, sometimes fighting each other. And that creates the polarization. The media then becomes part of that. So how we are dealing with it, we have platforms where we engage as practitioners, just the Zimbabwe National Interest Forum as one of them, where we try to always say that to ourselves, that let's always remember that our job is not to become embedded in the political parties, to become embedded with the players themselves. Our job is to remain above the fray, to provide information. We work for the listeners, we work for the audiences. We don't work for political parties. We don't work for the candidates. So that's what we always do, try to do, to remind each other that what is our mandate in the elections coverage. Our mandate can never be and should never be trying to assist a political party, trying to assist a candidate. Once you see yourself doing that, you must know that you are doing a disservice, point number one, to your audiences and readers. Point number two, you are doing a disservice to your own credibility, your media's credibility. You are also a disservice to the nation because you're not being useful. You are just inviting yourself to become embedded with a candidate, with a party, and become a running dog for them, or a useful idiot for them, which is not what we are supposed to do.
You're still tuned into ZFM Stereo, my station, your station, the hottest radio in town. It's a special edition of the platform brought to you by the Media Monitors in collaboration with the Media Alliance of Zimbabwe. My name is Larry Kwidera, and this program is being recorded was being broadcast before a live audience. And today we are talking about the monitoring of the media before during the elections. The elections are due on 30 July. And before the break, we talked about how the monitoring is happening. We talked to ZEC, we talked to private organizations, and also we talked to, as far as this important topic is concerned, to members of the media. And now we're going to move to people that are bringing us this program, the Media Monitors. And I've got the director of this being Patience Zerima. Question is, how has the media been performing so far?
Thank you very much, Larry. From the monitoring that we've been doing, we've realized that issues around fairness, balance, equality, equitability are still a little bit of a challenge in terms of reporting and producing different programs on elections. However, we note that there is a distinct improvement, especially after nomination, where now probably the media knows who's contesting, and we see a little bit more coverage of the smaller political parties. Before this, there was a predominance of the bigger political parties who got the majority of the space. However, there are still challenges in terms of the polarization that we noted, especially around the tone of reporting. When the media expresses some kind of sentiment on political parties, you find that there's a dominance of more positive or neutral reporting from the state or public media on the ruling party, and there's much more positive reporting on the opposition political parties in the private media. We also note that there are very low numbers of women who are coming out. This is one of the first elections that we've seen this large number, a relatively large number, or some candidates, especially presidential candidates, who are female. There are 3 women candidates, but there's still very little reporting on women. There's still reporting on women candidates who are participating. And we also find that even if we say that there are over 60% of young voters, youth who are going to be voting in this election or who registered to vote, their voices are almost non-existent in the media, and we don't really know what they have to say around this election.
And what are your recommendations to the media so far?
So far, we obviously have to make recommendations to the media to follow the law in terms of how the law really requires the media to be equitable. So there has to be a need for the media to come up with policies and procedures that allow them to present a fair picture to the public, to provide news in a balanced manner, to provide produce programs that actually show the diversity that is in the country. But also working with the Electoral Commission, we have directed some of those recommendations to the Electoral Commission to get them to see how they can even improve better on the complaints mechanism and ensuring that the media is in line with the provisions of the law.
I want to ask a question of the Electoral Commission before I open it up to our audience here. The question I ask is, she just said that there's, or Patience Zerima just said that the recommendations that are brought to the Commission, how seriously are those treated? And have there been any recommendations that have already been implemented?
We're still waiting, actually, for major complaints. I don't think there have been complaints so far. But when they come, as I said before, we go, we investigate, depending on the nature of the complaint. If it's violence and so on, as I say, it's a therapy, because we're working closely. They are part of our multi-party liaison committees. And that is those are the areas that some of these issues should be dealt with. But as a media monitoring committee, we try as much as possible to get to the nerve of the complaint and try to find out how to resolve the matter and even invite the complainant. Unfortunately, our statutory instrument 33-208 does not have, what would I say, teeth, even one tooth does not have. We depend on moral suasion. And the complaints must come in writing. And most of the people do not want to commit themselves into writing. But they want to come personally, that's okay. And then we can persuade them to put it in writing so that we can carry out any investigation. But so far, we're still really waiting for any major complaint. If there's a complaint, it is from us to the papers. And we cannot mediate and monitor what ZEC is being, that ZEC is being abused and so on and whatever. And that's one of the problems with media. Because once something gets into the papers and is read, and depending on the circulation, sometimes if a retraction is made, the damage is already done. So really we implore fairness. But these concepts about objectivity, fair, equitable, equity, they're problematic in themselves. It depends on the individual, on how you actually define those concepts and apply them. And therefore you get also this borderline, dissemination or publication of a story. And then you're not particularly sure. But as we engage with the political parties, as we, even civil society and other, we hope also to dig out the information that is causing these complaints, because they are there, they know they complain, and this comes out in the papers. The situation yesterday, for example, is in the papers. We all saw it and so on and whatever. It was publicized as it is and so on. But then there's also speculation and stretching the mark, and giving, a lot of space to things that should really not go out to the people as a hero. You make a hero of somebody who is not a hero, who's making a fool of himself.
Okay, maybe the question going back to the question I initially asked. Media Monitors says that they send recommendations.
They do.
And are those recommendations being...
They are very, very, very useful. Actually, if I may say so, we have got reports from the the two monitors here, that the two bodies that are here, and we still have to get our own reports. They are in the process of being put together. So their reports are very, very useful, and we take them seriously. And generally, we tend to see the same things that are actually making headlines and so on. We do the same, and what they have done, because they also do a quantitative analysis, which has been difficult to do with respect to the ZMC, and BARS is started now. I think they've got the equipment to actually do that and come up with statistics that we can use. And I would like to believe at one point or another there will be collision where the two will probably be seen more or less. They have nothing to gain by misrepresenting, because their task, they've got a reputation to protect, and so have we. But our task is really to ensure that there is fairness. As I am saying, these terms are very, very difficult to actually apply and implement.
You are tuned into ZFM Stereo, my station, your station, the hottest radio in town. This is a special edition of The Platform, brought to you by Media Monitors in collaboration with the Media Alliance of Zimbabwe. And if you have just tuned in, of course, we are broadcasting this in front of a live audience. And I'm going to open the questions up to the audience. Just state your name and what organization you represent before posing your question or contribution.
My name is Kelvin Chakachira. I come from AB Communications. My question is directed to Commissioner KAZEMBE. You speak about investigating breaches by the media. but I didn't get to hear you talk about the penalties that are slapped on around media houses. I say so because you seem to then risk being a bulldog that barks very viciously, but meanwhile it does not have teeth to bite. What is the position?
I will ask Mr. CHINAMORA to respond to that.
If I may come in, media monitoring during elections time is governed by statutory instrument 33 of 2008. It provides for do's and don'ts in terms of electoral reportage. What you see in those regulations is that if there is a complaint, it has to be dealt with within 48 hours. But as Mrs. KAZEMBE has just said, there are no penalties or enforceable penalties. But the spirit of the legislation was to say, if there is any breach, how best can we resolve that breach amicably? It's not about penalizing anybody. It's not about punishing anybody. But as Zimbabweans, what are we saying when we have got a breach, when someone is complaining against an allegation? But we call upon the media to say, let's stick to the principles of the profession to say, let's be accurate, let's be fair, and let's be objective. But what we are finding today is that most media houses are sticking by those cardinal principles of the profession. And we, for the time being, I think since the work of the committee started after proclamation, the reportage which we are seeing in the press has been rather fair.
Let me add that where somebody really feels really injured, there's always, of course, recourse to the various courts that have been set up, unfair treatment, and if they feel they've been injured, they can always go to the magistrate's court or to the electoral court to complain, so that really it becomes now a criminal act, and then the person is free actually to take it up over there. Because as I indicated, we try to use moral suasion. They can sue, they can do whatever it is they want for the paper. And that is why now we really persuade all the papers to as much as possible, try to be fair. But the one question of editorial policy that I mentioned can actually come into the way where the papers actually just they are on the borderline of ensuring that they are neither here nor there, and it is very difficult to pinpoint that here you have breached it, but they know definitely, they are the practitioners.
It's understandable that the media is indeed a critical component of how an election is run, depending on how fair, credible it is. But by your own acknowledgement, you seem to say that your media monitoring unit is not fully operational. Now, why do we seem to have this recurrent problem? Because since 2008 it wasn't fully operational, 2013 it wasn't fully operational. Don't you think that it tends to take away some of the important work that we are doing?
We are fully operational, and working with the Zimbabwe Media Commission and with the Broadcasting Authority of Zimbabwe. And we are operational within the legal framework that is set. If we do not have, which we do not have, punitive measures that we can inflict ourselves, then that's what the law gives us. And then as we said, moral suasion, we try to talk and ensure that there's fairness and so on. And if the West comes to the West, then somebody can actually take the legal route and go there. But as a body, we are fully operational within the confines of the legal framework that governs our operations. But we want as much as possible, we try, I think in the next election, we are hoping there would be an improvement. This statutory instrument 33 is 208. It's actually quite old, although we have some recourse to the amendments that we made, but really it needs upgrading. If we were to follow, for example, the Zambian route, they really have teeth, and they can stop a contestant from actually going out to the people, like they did the last election. Both major political were given a 2-week punishment, not to appear before people. And that, I think, would be better. But for us, we are fully operational, very much so.
But, two questions. One to MULEYA, saying that both the VMCZ and the Media Monitoring Committee of ZEC are saying they are yet to receive any complaints. Have you, as AMH or being chairperson of ZINEF, have heard of any complaints that have been directed at the media? Because I have a sense the complaints they have not been received by these two bodies, but maybe are being directed at the media themselves. And to the committee, is there a mechanism of monitoring violations against journalists in terms of their safety? I say so because at times something that is inhibiting the media to be fair is because they're saying now we no longer cover political party A or political party B, because when we covered them, we were harassed or were violated against.
Well, thanks for the question. The thing is, we haven't really of late received any election-related specific complaints. We generally get issues that arise out of stories of a various nature. You know, normally when people complain, they come through their lawyers. So they write letters of complaint, letters of demand, and we handle them through the legal route as well. But on election things, we haven't received any complaints, particularly as MH, about unfair coverage, biased coverage, because we always insisted to the reporters, there's nothing to be gained by being embedded. Just report what is there out of it. Obviously, how the stories are written, couched, sometimes some people will see them as not fair, you know what I'm saying? But at the end of the day, the idea is that it must meet the basics. There are ways stories are written. People, journalists, trained journalists know what are the fundamentals that should be there. As long as they are free of any blatant, opinionated content in them, bias and other things, then we are good to go with them. You just report what the guy says, put the background, and leave it to the readers to judge. So we don't have really complaints about elections that we are not covering parties fairly or well. Because we welcome all the parties. When they complain, say you're not covering, say we're available. If you want an interview, if you have something, manifestos, all of them, we go to them. It's only some of these small parties that you don't even know where they are based. You don't know their leaders' numbers. You know, these parties which are just one guy, his girlfriend, and his friends. You know. Those ones are difficult for us to cover. But parties that are institutionalized, organized, we cover them, and we haven't received complaints.
Well, we would like to think that any matter to do with security, the police come in terms of security. If anybody, a journalist, feels that they need security and they can come to us, we'll certainly direct them to whoever, because we have a number of police officers that we are linked with in the different provinces, the propoles and so on and whatever, who constitute part of the multi-party liaison committees I was talking about. And political parties are members to those multi-party liaison committees. And if a journalist who is there, or is covering, is abused or feels that they are being attacked, I'd like to believe they've got every right to come and talk to us and tell us that they are being abused and they seek protection. Then we'll see what we can do if it is warranted. But sometimes I think it is the institutions themselves that are being attacked. And who do we go to the journalists to absolve us?
I would want to ask colleague DUMISANI his opinions about comrades who are journalists participating in the elections, either as candidates or as, and then coming back to write about those elections. Because that is one of the questions that we have been asked by many, and I think it would be good to have his thoughts as a leader in the sector.
It's a very important question. That one is straightforward. It's unethical, it's unprofessional, it's cynical even for a journalist who is still part of the profession, who is in the newsroom, decides to go and participate in the electoral process, loses the election, comes back to the newsroom, pretend nothing has happened. Such people are very unprofessional. They must be condemned in the strongest of terms because they're a disgrace, complete disgrace. You have to choose. If you want to be a candidate, resign from the profession and the newsroom. Go and participate. When you lose, don't come back immediately because you are carrying baggage. You are already somebody there who has been routed in the election. You are bitter that you lost against this candidate or this. You are angry. Even if you are not angry, but you are not capable of being fair in covering not just the candidate who beat you, but the process in which you were involved unsuccessfully, in which you were failed candidate. So those kind of comrades, I don't understand why they themselves in the first place cannot understand that. Secondly, I don't understand the media houses where they work, why they allow them to assemble. So if there are still any people like that, we encourage them to resign immediately, go out of the newsrooms, go out of the media environment, probably try to spend some time trying to rehabilitate yourself, to become a professional person and come back later. So we condemn that very strongly. Those are not professional journalists, those are partisan elements who are opportunists who want to benefit from being professional journalists at the same time while it's trying to be political party players. So it's very clear condemnation, straightforwardly, they're a total disgrace.
Thank you. I am Ernest Mzeng. I am an ordinary citizen of Zimbabwe. Maybe my question is to the monitoring committee of ZEC. They point out that ever since the proclamation, the media has been reporting fairly, objectively, etc. But don't you also think that the period before the proclamation is equally important? Because damage may have been done there and it may have been done permanently. So what do you do with that particular period? And also, still on that, this also goes to media monitors. I think the report from media monitors, which they did, I think 2 weeks ago, which I think has been testified to by the presentation here by patients, points to unprofessional practice. I think she particularly cited the government-controlled media, which, in other words, surmising from here, you have become maybe extensions of the ruling party's commissariat department. What is ZEC doing? Have they talked to ZBC about their conduct? Or maybe they see no wrong in what ZBC is doing?
If I may start with the question of proclamation coverage by the media of the electoral environment. Unfortunately, there's nothing the committee can do. The law provides for media monitoring from the date of proclamation by the president. So that which happened before proclamation, yes, it's of interest. Yes, it can impact on the electoral environment. But unfortunately, the law only allows the media monitoring committee to establish itself after proclamation. So I think that needs to be looked at to say the coverage before elections is also, before proclamation, is also as important because it feeds into that period also. But the law only says that committee starts soon after proclamation by the president.
Let me add there. Thank you very much for the question. It's an important point that you've raised because now in the amendment, we actually propose that this actually monitoring begins 6 months before proclamation. Because we've noticed that the issues that are raised during that, prior to the proclamation, are actually, they influence the behavior of the media and the political parties and the leaders of those political parties. Is actually a continuation of the practice that they've been engaged in before they think that they are now being monitored. and particularly the media, they are doing whatever it is they like. We cannot run away from the fact, I'll put it as a fact, that the publishers of the different media houses, it's a fact that they are generally, they generally reflect who they support. You can see from the tone of the articles, you can see from the percentage of coverage that is given. If you look at the reports that they gave, and as she said, you can actually see a higher coverage of respective political parties by the papers and the leanings of the papers. So while we are saying we have not had a complaint yet, but now as we are saying we are compiling the reports, and it is coming, they've given us very good reports which actually indicate, which are, I like the statistics actually, they indicate that the coverage is not that fair, that balance. As I was saying again, definition of those concepts are a little problematic. What is fair, what is balanced? One will argue that I am being balanced because I'm following the news. And again, editorial policy comes. Who actually determines what comes into the paper and so on? You can actually see who determines the different papers. So your question is quite fair, yes. And we are monitoring and so on. But what comes out and the complaints that actually come will also influence the way that we are going to behave with respect to addressing some of the issues that are raised.
Thank you, Commissioner KAZEMBE. I saw Mr. Muleyya shaking his head.
No, I think you misread me. I wasn't shaking his head because of what she was saying. Maybe it was just an involuntary gesture. But now that you have prompted me, I'll quickly want to say that, well, it's not black and white, as you want to put it, that this media supports this and that. It's a perception, and I'll demonstrate that to you. Because you are going with the known media theory that owners determine content. It's a general agreed principle that owners have an influence and impact on content. But there is practice as well, and the practice brings into play other dynamics and factors that do not present us with that black and white. And let me give you an example. If you were to look clinically to say who owns ZBC, who owns Zim Papers, it's not the owners really who determine what comes out there. It's some cliques of political players with vested interests. Because ZANU-PF doesn't own Zim Papers. They don't own ZBC. It's not theirs. They must know that. If some of them don't know, those things don't belong to them. Yet they behave as if they own them. It's abuse. What we are seeing there is abuse by the ruling party of the public media. The public media belongs precisely to the public. So what we are dealing with here, we are dealing with abuse of the media by people who purport to own things that they don't own. And that is why we must, all of us as citizens, including yourself and the Commission, you must deal with that. You must not allow usurpers of space, public space that doesn't belong to them, to be colonized by them. They must be removed from that space, which means that space must belong to the public, not to ZANU-PF, in the case of the state media. Then come the private media. You have a situation where owners, in some cases, they try to interfere and control. But I will speak about what I know. I don't want to talk about things I don't know. In the case of where I work, AMH, the owners or owner simply have no control of content. I know most people don't believe that. I remember when we were doing some interview at Zim Papers with some editors from Zim Papers, we're basically telling them that, listen, the reality is that the owners where we work, they have no say, they have no control on what comes out in the newspapers, editorial policy. In fact, if you then follow that point to its logical conclusion, you find that in our case, the major shareholder or the shareholder there He has his own political views, which views we don't even agree with. Right now, there is a big debate going on there. Some people interpret his views to mean that he's supporting the current president, Emerson Mnangagwa, and he wants him to win the election against Mr. Nelson Chamisa. We don't agree with that because it's not our job. It's not our job to say who should win. It's our job to report who is doing what and then pose the question to the voters. Is this guy fit to govern? The one who is there, is this guy fit to govern, the one who wants to come in, or the others who want to come in? That's where we sit. In the last election, for instance, let me omit 2013, go to 2008. Our publisher was supporting Simba Makoni because he wrote about it in our publication. And we wrote opposing what he's saying, that your guy is going nowhere. He has no traction. So in other words, I'm trying to demonstrate that where we work, the editors determine editorial content. It's not the owner. The owner doesn't even know what we're going to put out. He doesn't come to diaries. He doesn't phone anybody else about content. He only sees things. And just like any other person out there, if he's not happy with a story, you say, comrade editor, this story of yours, I'm not convinced by what you're saying. We'll say that is how we see it, and this is how we are doing it. If you have your own views, we have space, you can write your own opinion, we'll publish it, Mr. Publisher, in your own publications.
Okay,
so I'm trying to demonstrate that point, that it's not clean, black and white. Okay. So if there's more dynamics and complexity.
Okay,
Wow.
I know we can talk until the council, but
it's an opinion and perceptions and so on and whatever. And us who are not practitioners in the field, we are reading the stories, and as you said, we have our own conclusions, whatever you may make.
Okay, so conclusions. This is going to be one of those.
Yes.
You know, 6.5 dozen, whichever way. You at home, you decide for yourself what you think of this. Given an indication that we've got 3 minutes left, so I want to do a roundup. And we'll start off with Mr. Duba has been very quiet. My question to you, the last thing, you monitored previously, you've done work on elections previously, or even the electoral environment. Do you see an improvement?
It's difficult to tell, Larry. Like I mentioned earlier, the intensity of elections pick up when you come closer to the election period. I can't give you an analysis of this current election based on 2013 because a lot of things are likely to happen in the coming. I think we have about 33 days. It's a lot of time. A lot of things will happen. But I think in terms of, if you want to do a barometer in terms of how the media has been, I think they've been fair. Someone alluded to that they've reported fairly. But my challenge to them still is to say, look, there is a need to be professional. A lot of people out there are going to judge the media on unprofessionalism. I'll add on to the aspect that MULEYA spoke about, where you have comrades who go in contest. The war aspect in terms of judgment, the cumulative, it contributes to the unprofessional nature. So we challenge the comrades in the media to do their best to uphold professionalism whenever they can. And we firmly believe it's not their role to decide who wins. They should just articulate issues and let the public make informed decisions. And they have to do that in a professional manner. We have a code of conduct. There are lots of code of conduct. But the bottom line is that whatever they write, is it accurate? Is it truthful? Is it fair? Is it balanced? That's a defense they can use against any other attack that they can get from anywhere. And it's a challenge that we put to even the other comrades we work with, to say, look, editors, look, you guys need to be professional to protect the integrity of your own reporters. And in the end, to protect the integrity of the journalism profession. When people say that the media is unprofessional, it's because of some contributions that people have done individually, and it has a bearing on the integrity of the whole profession. I'll use Muleya's words whenever we have complaints that come from him. He might not agree, but he has said that, I'm not going to use the words exactly. He says, I might not agree with these people, but for the sake of the profession, we have to reach a consensus and find each other in whatever we don't agree on.
And then to Zach, does the public finally, does the public have access to reports around the fairness of the elections, in the coverage of the elections, rather?
Well, yeah, if they want them, they can get them. What we do really, we are always producing a report at the end of the elections, very big, thicker than the elections report itself, as an attachment of the electoral report. But anybody who really wishes to get reports and get try to understand what our opinion is, should be free to just come in and work. As we say, they can always come, but always what we will act for is actually something that is written down. So the public is free. They can actually come and say, I don't like what this paper is written, and put down whatever it is, their objections are down.
And then going to go finally to media monitors. What we will ask is, what, in as far as okay, my question's just gone. Live on radio. Okay, in as far as this process has taken place, also access to reports by media monitors, can people in public get access to media monitors? And how can we also keep it, if I have my complaints or if I come across something, can I bring that across to media monitors?
Thank you very much, Larry. Our reports are publicly available. They're available if people want to go on our website to look at the reports at monitors.org.zw. But in terms of complaints, while we don't receive complaints, we do get complaints. We forward them usually to the Voluntary Media Council of Zimbabwe, who are our partners in other platforms. So whenever there are complaints, they do come to us. And just to say, sometimes complaints are not necessarily going to come to VMCZ or to the commission. Sometimes they go directly to the media houses themselves, and those complaints are, sometimes we get sight of some of the complaints when people come to us and they're trying to get evidence maybe around some of the complaints that they have, but those complaints do come and they are always welcome because it also gives us an idea of what is it that is worrying people.
That's the voice of Patience Zirima, who is the Director of Media Monitors. And also on the panel today we had Lofty Dube, who is the Director of the Voluntary Media Council of Zimbabwe, and Commissioner JOYCE KAZEMBE, who is the ZEC, who is part of the ZEC Media Monitoring Committee, and the editor of Zimbabwe Independent, Mr. DUMISANI MULEYA, and also from that Media Monitoring Committee from ZEC, we had Mr. Academy CHINAMORA. Thank you very much for joining us already, and to the audience that we've had, thank you very much for taking part in this very important discussion. My name is Larry Kwididai, it's CFM Stereo, my station, your station, the hottest radio in town. And of course, before I go, I'd also like to thank Media Monitors in collaboration with Media Alliance of Zimbabwe for making this show possible. Take care of yourself and the people that you love, and as I always say, where I come from, asili siyasebeza. Take care of yourself.